Życzymy Państwu przyjemnej podróży.
Dzień dobry Państwu. Witam wszystkich na panelu Czytelnictwo jako oręż.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the panel Readership as a Democratic Weapon. It's going to commence with a brief introduction by Robert Piaskowski, the director of the National Culture Center. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for giving some space to discussing the fuel for the society, namely the contemporary reading competencies. The National Culture Center supports this year's Freedom Games. That's a great honor and privilege to co-organize panels related to our mission, meaning equalizing opportunities in culture. We are going to discuss readership as a democratic weapon. Yesterday, we discussed creative freedom and the right for culture, listening to the testimony of creators from Palestine and China. These issues are mirrors for one another, hence we need to refer to Salman Rushdie, the writer who paid a high price for his novel in his Joseph Anton, tells the story of his life in the shadow of fatwa. But there are plenty of examples when the literature was an obstacle. Ovidio, who had to escape, didn't come back to Rome, but his poetry lasted longer than the Roman Empire. Anderson died in prison, but his poetry survived longer. Lorca died from Frankists, but his oeuvre remained longer. Art is strong. Art is capable of defending itself. Artists need defenders. That's why we need to support creators who move the borders and who do not let leaders to draw lines on the sand and decide whether they can be overcome. Rushdie wrote that the literature knows, has always known. The literature tries to open the universe and increase the sum of what a human can perceive, understand, and what they can finally be. Great literature reaches the limits of cognition, presses the borders of forms to make the world appear greater than it was and broader than it was. That's why we need to read and we need to write. We need to expand the borders of our worlds, especially since we live in the times, as Rushdie writes, where males and females are pushed to narrower definitions of self. They are encouraged, they are described as a Serbian or Croatian, Hindi, Muslim, Christian or Jew. The narrower the identity is, the more likely the conflicts between them are. The literature, in its approach to human nature, encourages to understanding, to compassion, and identifying with people who are not like us, but the world pushes us towards narrowness, bigotry, rivalrism, sects, and war. But coming back to reading, Voltaire perceived reading as a way to develop morality of intellect. Reading expands your mind and makes you better. Aristotle pointed out how important independent thinking is, and it should go hand in hand with reading. Reading is meaningful only when it inspires for your own search and discovery. In Plato's dialogue, Socrates underlines how important it is to gain knowledge from reading and from life through reflection and dialogue. Each of these statements presents different aspects of reading, from the value through to acquiring others people's thoughts without considering them. But reading has great power once accompanied by independent thinking and active reflection. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now leaving the paradigm of enlightenment and positivism. Reading is a multi-channel impact covering such aspects as financing libraries, subsidies for book purchases, reading promotion, and equalizing the chances, promoting libraries and as socially living places where civic culture and civic engagement are born. We are aware that the world of digital technology brings new challenges also related to disinformation. The research shows that regular use of literature strengthens understanding the significance of democratic institutions and fosters active participation in social life. Daniel Pennock research proved that reading teaches you how to develop creative thinking. According to Oxford research, people who read a lot are less susceptible to fake news. Warsaw University's research by Kasprzak, Culture versus Democratization, proves the same. The panel will be related to greater democratization of access to books and knowledge. Tools and methods change, but the objective remains unchanged: to enable contact with present literature to the largest group of people possible, build critical, coexisting and cooperating society. It cannot be achieved through central institutions. Social partners, business, NGOs need to work hand in hand to expand the reading field, just like we need to do it with literature and free media, as this is the prerequisite for creating pluralistic, open, creative, and learning society. Thank you very much. That was Robert Piaskowski, the director of the National Culture Center. His institution is this panel's patron. Let me introduce my panelists. I'll follow gender and alphabet order. Maria Deskur, president of the Universal Reading Foundation, author of the publication Superpower of Books. Agata Diduszko-Zyglewska, advisor of the Ministry of Culture, activist, president of the Commission of Culture and of Culture Promotion in Warsaw Council. Anna Dziewit-Meller, writer, editor-in-chief of WAB. And the only male representative, Grzegorz Jankowicz, director of the Book Institute, Konrad's Festival Program Director. I'm Magda Melnyk, Łódź City Library and Liberté. When I was asked to chair this panel and to design it, Leszek Jeżdżewski told me, find good quotation, preferably Miłosz, something that will build authority. But I will use quotation by Ryszard Koziołek and an anecdote that his publication. In February, in Krupowski Street in Zakopane, a tourist approaches a Highlander selling sheep's milk cheese and asks, "Is it really sheep's milk cheese?" That's February, and I do not have sheep's milk in February. How should I know it? You should read a lot. Reading a lot will help. And hence my question goes to Maria. What to do to know that sheep do not give milk in February? Honestly speaking, I do not feel that we need to know it. Well, that's it, but extensive reading could give such knowledge. Ryszard Koziołek, during the meeting in Sopot, said reading is not so good. He remembers him as a young boy when he lost contact with the world due to his avid reading. This inspired a fierce debate. Basically, from the Reading Foundation's perspective, where I work, we say less about what reading gives you from the point of view of knowledge as such, but it's more about competences we gained. So social competences, thinking, empathy, meaning all aspects of our functioning. Knowledge is an obvious thing. But nowadays, it's not only, the reading is not only meant to give knowledge, but it's simply that we become better humans, in such a sense that we are more open, more ready for a dialogue. We understand reality better, and it's easier for us. And another important element, it's not about being cultured people or be specialists in humanities. We emphasize how important it is to encourage children to reading so that they can become who they want to be, because reading builds our synthetical, critical, and analytical thinking. All these potentials are triggered. And a reading child can become an IT specialist, a biologist, an engineer, whoever they want to be. Now, my question goes to Anna, but referring to what Maria said. I feel that children who come to school ask great questions without being able to read, without knowing the literature. They ask, where does the world come from? Why is grass greener? And after spending 8 years in primary school, they no longer ask these questions. I feel that one of the reasons behind it is the canon, what they get to read. So, Anna, would you like to refer to it? What do children, what do adults in Poland read? Because you do have a knowledge about it as the editor-in-chief. It's a tricky question and a broad one. What about the literary canon, it has been evolving. We like complaining about it when we refer to Konopnicka, but my daughter is grade 4 and son is grade 6. The book list they are supposed to read contains contemporary books which respond to their needs. My son loves books about Paul's street boys. It was quite surprising. This is a list. This is a list of supplementary books that wise teacher recommend. You need to read Pan Tadeusz, and it's at least some fragments. There are also some books which are easier to read. So that's it when it comes to literary canon. I'm following it closely, but I'm not sure whether it's only about canon and what book it contains, but simply that it's mandatory to read. It's imposed, and that's something you have to do. Perhaps that's the essence of the problem. Instead of finding pleasure in doing it voluntarily, you simply have to do it. I hate being forced to doing anything. I'm still wondering why I keep on reading. As for the other part of your question, what do we read nowadays? It depends where you look. When you look at top sales lists such of big chain stores, and we learn that Poles read books which revise the material for school leaving exams, so Poles feel pressed to read it. This is the top sales list, but they also read young adults and fantasy books. This craze has been declining, and the interest is redirected somewhere, but I don't know where, what's going to follow after young adults. Will they still be readers? How many of them will be readers longer than this trend lasts? Simply to have the topic for a conversation. Many young people wrote Monet Family because they wanted to have the topic to discuss with their peers. So it depends. When you go to discussion clubs, they read other things. The library lists of popular books are also completely different. So there are lots of differences. There's one thing, we could read more, no doubt about it. Perhaps more Poles should be born, and then our reading rates will be higher. Generally, we need more Poles. Thank you.
Tutaj płynnie przejdę do tego.
Agata. So, how to do it? How to have more Poles? What to do to make sure that Polish people read more, or more Pole should read? I know that you are quite involved with it. You've been dealing with it for over 10 years. You're also an advisor to the Minister of Culture. So what are the plans to turn Poland into Sweden? Very interesting concept. I don't try to encourage you to have the next flat. I don't know if everybody would like us to become Sweden, because Sweden has its problems too. Together with Katarzyna Szumilewicz, I wrote a book, Poland is Reading, and Swedish context was included, and we discussed the book with the Swedes. I also spoke to Grzegorz Gowden, with the Minister of Culture, Joanna Kluzik-Rostkowska. So that was the time when the first national program to boost reading in Poland. And after the decade, now we work for the ministry, we are in the ministry, and together with Director Grzegorz Jankowicz, with Anna and Maria being present in the meeting, actually we gathered a group of people who keep thinking, who are nervous about this issue. So the reflection is that we were speaking about the same thing, which indicates it's a very sad conclusion that the national program of boosting the reading has led to major changes. Many libraries have been built. They are the real libraries in the style following the Scandinavian Swedish model, most egalitarian institutions of culture. They are the places you can visit to talk, to read, to feel well. And contrary to these sports pitches, school sports pitches, which are only used mostly by boys. The libraries are for everyone. We also gained more funding to purchase books for the libraries. But these positive changes did not result in this main change. So these key things still have not been achieved. So something that is of key importance, it's the thinking about the need for cooperation between the Ministry of Culture, the Institute of National Education, the Institutes of Books. School is most general institution in Poland, universal institution, because everybody reaches school sooner or later. I'm sure that all of you know the definitions. We know that reading should be started at the very beginning. Children should observe their parents reading books, and children in the nurseries should listen to the books. Book reading. So based on the Scandinavian model, there should be a combination between the school and the community library. So thanks to this, the state will take you by your hand to the reading process. So once you are a school graduate, you will still be attending the library. It will no longer be the school library, but it will be your community local library. Ministry for Education was involved in this program, and a lot of good things happened. So after the decade, we've managed to do quite a lot of things, but still we are in the place where we have to decide that we should start addressing them to have the sustainable change. There are numerous studies that no change has occurred. For example, there's this research of 2022. It's a school research delivered in European schools. So based on the study results, we know that the number of reading pupils actually has declined. On the other hand, everything changed. Children who were born in internet reality are 10 years old now. So internet really affects the reading as an effective tool. So we are in this internet-based experiment. So it's a very interesting moment. I have mentioned several occasions this national program to boost reading. We are cooperating with the ministers about it. So we are getting ready for the third decision of this program. We will have some social consultations, and we will introduce some major changes. And again, let's get back to the subject of Sweden. At the time, we were talking about very specific matters. In Sweden, in Scandinavian countries, children read books together at schools. Libraries perform lots of different functions. A football coach, a PE teacher tells students that it's worth reading. So it's not only for the librarian and the teacher of Polish to tell children that they should read. Maja Hacińska, as researcher, wrote a very interesting article in which she compared the differences. So there was this integration of readership and democracy. In Sweden, since the 16th or 17th century, there was the parliament which represented all the social classes. So even peasants were included. That means that they had to know how to read and they had to learn law because they needed their representation in the Swedish parliament. In Poland, in the 19th century, in Sweden, 85% people read. In Poland, 15 or 20% of people could read, depending on the partition. So these Swedish and Polish differences are very strong, and we need a long time, not 5 or 10 years, to change it. But we've got the tools, and this is the time when we have this great opportunity to analyze it and to start the next edition of this government's program, which is a powerful tool, to make sure that we should succeed in introducing effective changes in readership. So we are reaching the main conclusion. That is the two topics that should be defined. So what readership is? How do we understand democracy? The first association when I think of Sweden and Poland, well, first of all, I think of Sweden. We are centuries behind Sweden when we talk about building civic citizens, communities, people who have competence to read and they understand what they read. They are aware of their citizens' rights. And on the other hand, we've got Poland, the nation which think that Poles are predestined to read and interpret reading. And the same approach is taken at schools. In the modern time, if somebody had a different interpretation of a specific short story or questioned the assessment of Danusia or Jagienka, the characters of the very famous Polish novels, then these people received a bad grade. So I'd like to give the floor to you, Director. So in a way, I summed up Polish nation spirit. But we are in Poland. This is Freedom Games. We can see how Poland thinks. I think that readership as a social practice is not weapons. I don't like military associations because now the context is very different. It's different during peacetime when we're looking at the territory of 1,000 kilometers away. the radius of 1,000 kilometers. Readership as a social practice is not a tool of having a fight. It's something that should be supported and protected. It's important that readership and democracy are perceived as two levels. From readership to democracy, we should rather see two phenomena that are mutual. In the United States, this is a democratic country. Over 20% of the society are the people who cannot read. It's about 40-something million people who cannot read. Additionally, 130 millions have the readership competence at the level of year 6 of the elementary schools. So it's about 170 million, at least 50% of the democratic society. People who do not have tools that would allow them to refer to the reality in the way that will provide them with being able to achieve. It's important for us to change our way of thinking. So all these important items that were mentioned by the previous speakers, they should take place. So before it happens, we should get rid of some myths, stereotypes of readership, even the positive ones. Sometimes the positive ones are equally harmful as the negative ones. Only once we change our attitude to readership, we will be able to understand why we need reading. And then we will also become aware, it will be probably surprising. I have been involved in organization of actions to support reading. So, in this practice, nothing is obvious, nothing is guaranteed. Robert has mentioned some studies, Maria mentioned some studies, Agata has also mentioned them. So, it's like a momentary picture, perception that can show us how readership works. We live in the era where the dynamic of social transformation is huge. The study of 2022 indicated that the decline in readership among young people was due to the fact that the data was reported incorrectly. But then some programs were developed based on these results, programs to boost readership. So we will not achieve the desired outcome if we do not look back to observe the culture and social aspects, the place where all the processes and activities are integrated. Once we conduct this task, then we will find out that all the activities that are to support young people to change their attitudes towards the literary canon and to proceed with reading other types of books. Well, these actions will be ineffective, because the new technology is the extension of the young people's bodies. This is how they perceive it. So it results in a very intensive experience of hyper reading. attitudes. That means that at the neurological level, there are some changes that will prevent them from reading longer text. Doesn't matter whether it's Sienkiewicz or Monet family. These processes are in parallel. So we have to look at both these areas. If we don't do this, we will not be able to operate effectively. I am an activist. I want to support reading. I am the director of the Institute of Book that organizes the tools to animate literature-related fields. So I miss these links among these areas. I would like to indicate 3 areas, tools. Agata mentioned the national program of readership development. It's a huge undertaking that was started many years ago. Prime Minister Tusk actually was very much for this program. So there is a huge role for this program. But we should imagine a triangle. The second corner of the triangle should be focused on the book market regulation. It will facilitate to support specific entities that operate on this market, and they are necessary to create good literature, publish good literature, and read good literature. And the third corner is the zero VAT for books. I think it's a great solution. It will be a costly solution for Poland. If we include magazines in this attitude, it will be some 500 million zlotys. Books themselves about 200 million zlotys. These are not huge, because the actually beauty sector has a lower VAT. Now it's 8%. It was a couple, the loss was 2 billion zlotys. So we need to do something for our souls now. Oh, somebody will do this. I have no tools to have this zero VAT rate for books. VAT for books, let's say it will be reduced to 0. This is a desired solution. But on the other hand, we need some tools that will regulate the book market. So very quickly, these 5% will disappear. And the beneficiaries of the projects, the readers or book buyers, they will not even notice it. So I don't want to say that culture is a plumbing system.
If we do not keep an eye on all these elements, we can have best intentions and shout out loud in a lovely voice, and others are happy when we say read more, but we can simply fail. Could I ask a question to this map? All right. It seems to be the right path to extend our thinking as part of building demand. If we leave regulations and the VAT aside, I feel that an important component is, as you said, the change of the roots of our thinking and the groups of stakeholders. The Ministry of Culture, the Ministry of Education, these are the two ministries which are of our interest, this is not enough. Not because I would like to get involved in the Ministry of Regional Policy to our interest, but I simply believe this is their interest. And my statement is based on research. There is plenty of research showing that children who read and talk to their parents develop better. So our minister should be interested in this topic. So, in addition to this triangle, when it comes to outlining the width of the paradigms we use when approaching this topic, we should simply leave our bubble. I can only say that's exactly what I wanted to say. We talk over and over again. We are friends. We know everything about one another. We should have Minister Domański discussing with us. He's somewhere there. Let's exchange experiences in different planes and spaces. We should have a specialist in IT, experts who wrote Jonathan Haidt, and say whether it's worth taking our kids away from smartphones. That's the key area for our future. That's eminently significant. Taking an opportunity, we should exchange opinions in a group of such great people, but we need other people to talk to us. Anna, I will just pierce your bubble and say that for me, reading is not only about books. You cannot reverse a river. It would be good to have regulation on the use of smartphone among children, but I don't want to talk about it, although it was highlighted. The data related to the USA show that we've got millions of people who read. Not necessarily books, but Twitter, the content submitted in social media. What's important for me is that we need to move forward when it comes to changes, as we cannot reverse them. But we need to have the tools to evaluate the content, where it comes from, who wrote it, why it was published in such a moment. And how the tools to control our emotions, because the content is formulated in such a way that they are supposed to trigger emotions. I was closely observing what happened in Catalonia before the referendum, what Russian bots did. Yesterday, I participated in a panel on music serving propaganda, and I suppose we should ask about reading in the service of propaganda and ideology. Last month, I visited the National Library, presenting an exhibition of old Polish writing. From the very first book, we could see there the results of propaganda, because they were books written on commission, Długosz-Kadłubek. We can teach our children, and we have always had a problem with that, to teach what for, why. I don't like cancel culture. We can take Sienkiewicz. We need him to understand how we changed, how we have changed since his times. But does it mean there is something like ideology present in literary text and non-ideology, meaning critical approach to reality, which is present in more aware text? There is ideology of free market, which is present in many texts, meaning what you can read. And the simplest definition of ideology is mixing phenomenalism with reality, mixing the image we create and we associate it with the essence, the way of functioning of the reality as such. Thinking this way, we cannot say there is no non-ideological space. Hence, our practice of writing and reading seems even more important. We can easily show the difference between the moment we are in and the past literature, and for a long time talk about stories, how much we developed. But I suppose it's going to be better to understand we are in trouble even more than Sienkiewicz, who wrote according to specific political framework. So it was easier for him to run his stories. So it's not the case that Poland suffers because of the culture of great poets, that we need some guides to explain something to us. Social and economic mechanisms that determine our lives are similar to those which apply to the environment outside our culture. Polish culture is represented in the texts and books which are written here, but the conditions of their publishing are similar to those in other countries. We are not going to solve problems once we say it's all because of Sienkiewicz. Right. Continuing and referring to what you have just said, we can say that the authorities of great poets and writers has worn out. They are no longer unchallenged authorities. Those of you who have kids certainly know that these ideals are no longer valid, that teenagers do not like being blackmailed with the same values. It's a major change. We experienced rejection, but the role of creating authority was taken over by the internet market. Celebrities are very important authorities and of different quality. I feel we are coming back to school, that the school is a super important place where we can teach people to differentiate between good and bad facts and opinions, reliable sources from non-reliable sources. It's not about politically controlled world. There is a higher level, which is less transparent, meaning the business, international, global one, that we do not have access to, just like 99% of people. And it controls or orients our choices. Hence, the comeback to the role of school and its impact on our activities, but inclusion of various ministries in a broader sense to promoting reading as an important tool of building identity and defend ourselves against populism is close to our ministry. The 7th and 9th of November we'll have the Congress on Culture. Some panels will be devoted to regulating the literature market. We invited the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Finance and Social Policy, and National Education. And yet again, there is the shared reflection. We won't do it without other ministries. We simply won't be able to do it on our own. I'm very happy that this is the thinking of the state and ministers. I believe that's the time of opportunities that we will use before there is turmoil preventing us from doing it. A lot is going on in some areas, and it's difficult. That's a moment of chance, an opportunity. If I could add, in addition to multi-sectoral aspect that we all agreed upon, and multi-silo approach, we need multi-sectoral approach. I represent the third sector, but I think business could invest a lot in books. We participated in EFNI. We had 2 panels on reading. There were lots of positive responses and a lot of people in the audience. We were invited there and we had guests of our choice, so great experience. But let's stay skeptical and see what happens next. One more point I would like to make, which is a major challenge. School has an important role to play, but our brains develop most dynamically within the first 3 years of our lives. For the first 3 years of human life, we could exert the greatest impact on brain development. It happens through thematically rich environment, conversations, and involving the child, but essentially, developed countries invest in our education from the age of 5, meaning after the period where we could have some impact. Small child, big book, that's the scheme which responds to these needs, but there is no explicit answer on how to address it. During EFNI, we had a representative of the Committee of Culture who said they know about it, but they keep on debating what it means that the state enters other people's houses, namely how to do it so that it's not only ideology or Kadłubek, the chronicle writer. Through the Ministry of Health, if we have a small child, we visit outpatient clinics very often. There are various links and crossing lines. That's a good concept. I remember that was a frequently visited place for me. Sometimes I feel we are in a bubble where we've been discussing it for 10 years in the same group of people, and sometimes it can be inspiring. Leaving the comfort zone is sometimes necessary, so it's good you were in EFNI with our market, and it's so simple. I would like to say that when it comes to other culture sectors, it went quite well. Please note what we managed to do with the Polish cinema, supported by the state, not from the budget. We have a special fund. It has been successful. Sorry to say that. I have high hopes in related to the act you mentioned, and I hope we will see such results as those related to films. I'm mentioning it as an editor-in-chief. The market is a challenge. This pie to divide is small. So we are looking for help. I will only add, before this panel, I participated in a panel about film, and they complained as well. They shouldn't. Well, I simply want to inform you rather than praise ourselves. It's important not only for the literature milieus, but the society to know what we do when it comes to this small book, big human scheme. Within a few days, we'll initiate another edition. This is the largest European book start project with a huge potential. We've been working on some amendments to the scheme in the next year so that it is more inclusive and engages publishers, editors of books for children. It's not the case that an institution knows, the institution says, the institution implements it, and wait until it comes to you. The scheme is designed in such a way that we work with hospitals, midwives. That's a network of activities which help transfer the knowledge how to work with the youngest children and to develop their competencies. As for what you expect from us, and you shouldn't feel sorry. I'm a Pole, so that's why I'm always sorry. I'm very happy that there are such expectations, and that's our task. Now we have been conducting the book market research. The objective is to analyze the relationship between entities operating in this market so that we know through research and analysis, and not only in conversations that have been going on for many years, so that we know which entities are dominant, which are superior, what are the relationships, economic ones between them, and what it means today, and what it's going to mean in the short and long-term perspective. I hope the research can be used to reflect on regulations. So that's the moment for the question from the audience. Are there any questions? Anybody willing to join this discussion, share a reflection? That means everybody agrees with us. Artur Nowak-Gocławski, I would like to say that reading is important in business. I don't remember the name of the professor from Harvard University who tells his students don't go MBA, but he refers to business representatives, not just to realize what business is about, but to make people sensitive what it's important for the business to be decent. 12 years ago, I established a library in my company. We've got a network of branches, and we exchange books. So a round of applause. A round of applause for this gentleman. Let me only add that in our conversations with business we discussed various topics. For instance, in one of our panels, we had a lady from Michelin who told us that she allows for reading for her workers, offers access to apps, and nearly a half of these workers started this app, and she can see that they do read. It shouldn't be philanthropy from the business side. She mentioned it was her business because the company is perceived as a nice place to work. People have topics for conversations. They feel better and the staff turnover is lower. So the 4 panels we had were devoted to the benefits for business. And we had people from the UK who created the environment of corporations where reading is encouraged. So perhaps that's a good idea. Let me only add that we really need regulations to do such things. Legimi Gate and Library Gate and using it in the wrong way suggests that we do need assistance. We need regulations, order, and a fair settlement. It's really a problem, and we need to know who should pay for what. Half a minute to finish? What you said is we should start by defining a reading, so we can do it at the end instead of the beginning. There are 3 aspects. Reading as acquiring practice, which results in extending the competences mentioned by Maria. It is also the consumption practice of reading books. And the 3rd meaning is the practice which is creative. It's not about reading as a source of knowledge or cognitive tools, but as a stimulant of our imagination, so that in interaction with our reality and everyday life can work with a potential, with opportunities that the reality offers. And in this respect, business should get involved as it could gain a lot. Okay, so that was our wrap-up. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Anna Dziewit-Meller, Maria Deskur, Agata Diduszko-Zyglewska, and Grzegorz Jankowicz. Thank you very much.
Jedzą kanapki z kawiorem.
Nadzwyczajna kasa.
Obrażanie dziennikarz telewizji polskiej.
Chodzi o działania polityczne.
Przygotowanie ofiar dla pedofilów.
Für Deutschland.
TVP Info. Włącz się na nowo.
Radość, nadzieja, życie, wyzwanie, pasja, pamięć, zaufanie, pokój, jedność. Słowa tworzą świat. Polskie Radio. Źródło wiarygodnych informacji.
Plany biznesowe powstają z marzeń. Dlatego nie ma 2 takich samych firm. Jedni chcą działać na całym świecie. Innym cały świat mieści się w dłoni. Sukces biznesu to nie tylko jego wielkość, ale też szczęście, jakie przynosi ludziom. PKO Bank Polski.
Uwielbiam szycie w sieci. Wczoraj podszyłem się pod wnuczka, wieczorem uszyłem intrygę na apce randkowej, a dziś planuję grubymi nićmi szyte oszustwo z promocją. Tak się szyje.
Na oszustów są sposoby. Zapoznaj się z poradami ekspertów na niedajsiepodszyć.pl.
It's not always easy to recognize. It may look like this, or like this. It may be a burden, but it is a responsibility that we embrace nonetheless. But if it means this for one person and this for someone else, maybe it ultimately means being there for one another. It isn't handed to us, but we know where to find it. And how it feels, how it tastes, and what it sounds like when we finally have it. It means different things to different people, but for many, it means everything. And if we all fight for it, it will eventually bring us together.
ihrer Ausreise.
Polskie Radio.
Jedynka.
Rodzina spółek Pelion to 12 tysięcy osób pracujących w ponad 300 spółkach w Polsce, Szwecji, Wielkiej Brytanii i na Litwie. Jesteśmy liderem w branży ochrony zdrowia. Od 1990 roku dbamy o długość i jakość życia. Pracować z nami możesz w jednym z 7 obszarów.
Zapraszamy do Trójki. Od nowa.
Trójka. Program Trzeci Polskiego Radia.
Czy wytrzymasz klockowe tortury? Ze stoickim spokojem. Czy w twardych negocjacjach zachowasz zimną krew? Czy poddasz się dobrowolnej eksmisji ze swojego łóżka? Brawo! Test na obecność serca zaliczony. To znaczy, że ty też możesz być rodzicem zastępczym. Dowiedz się jak na testserca.pl.